Hey, what's up, everyone? This is the undeniable, unfiltered, and unbiased Gridiron Gilly Show, and I'm your host, Gridiron Gilly. I'm here to talk college football, so let's get into it. Last week, I talked to Florida State, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech won that game. I just got through watching the Colorado North Dakota State game. Colorado won by the skin of their teeth. However, they are pretty scrappy offensively. They're real flashy, score a lot of points, have a lot of guys who are playmakers, and I like to see that. They need to tighten up on defense, though. Um, this week, I'm talking four games in particular, four games everybody cares about, everybody wants to see, and four games that mean a lot for this season. If you lose one of these games, you're screwed. You you still got a chance at being one of the 12 at the end of the season, but you better win out. Um, if you win this game, you still got some tough games the rest of the way, but this is a real confidence booster uh, for any of these 8 teams in these four games. Whoever wins these four games, confidence boost the rest of the season. These games that I'm going to be talking are the first game, Clemson versus Georgia. Um, Second game I'm going to be talking is Miami versus Florida. Um, Third game is going to be Notre Dame at Texas A&M, and the fourth game is LSU versus USC. They'll be playing in Las Vegas. Okay, so what I did was I looked at what those guys what they did last year. I looked at what they bring to the table this year. I looked at their coaches, um, offensive, defensive, some things they do well, some things they don't do so well. I broke it all down, wrote it down in my little notebook here, and I'm going to tell you what I think. So, first and foremost, let's get started. The first game I'm going to break down is Clemson versus Georgia. They're playing this Saturday. Um, Man, it's going to be a tough one. Um, but here we go. The number 14 Clemson Tigers are going to play the number 1 Georgia Bulldogs. 2023, Clemson was 9-4. They were 4-4 in the ACC. And Dabo Swinney is their head coach. Of course, he's been there for a pretty long time. Clemson players to watch: we got quarterback Cade Klubnik, threw for 2,844 passing yards last year. He had 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Running back Phil Maffa, and I underline that because this guy, I think he's going to be a difference maker. I don't know about this game, but in the season, I think he'll be a difference maker. Maffa last year, he ran for 965 yards and 13 touchdowns, and he was splitting totes with Will Shipley, who went to the league. So it'll be his show to run. We have wide receiver Tyler Brown. He had 52 receptions, 531 yards, 4 touchdowns. And we had tight end Jake Briningstool, 50 receptions, 498 yards, 5 touchdowns. Clemson gave up only 114.6 yards a game on the ground. Clemson also gave up 173.2 yards through the air, finishing 8th overall in that category. Offensively, Clemson was pretty stagnant from what we're used to seeing. They were 60th in pass yards a game and 42nd in rush yards, averaging nearly 30 points per game. Clemson returns 7 offensive and 3 defensive starters. Clemson's only losses a year ago came at the hands of 4 familiar faces and conference opponents. A 9-4 Clemson is a down Clemson, in my opinion. A big part of this is Dabo's disdain for the portal. I understand where he's coming from, but for Clemson to rise back to national prominence, it may take getting some portal guys, 1 or 2 of them at least, to rub Howard's rock. As good as Clemson was defensively, 5 of their starters will be playing on Sundays this year. Offensively, with Will Shipley going to the league, look for Dabo to lean on senior running back Phil Maffa early and often this year. The 6'1", 230-pound back should exceed 1,000 yards on the ground this year and should be a difference maker in a lot of games near the goal line. 6'1", 230 pounds. That's a big dude right there. That's a big dude. Him running at me downhill, I just get out the way. I don't know what the Georgia Bulldogs are going to do about that. Probably stop them behind line of scrimmage, but we'll see. Okay. Also, look for sophomore wide receiver Tyler Brown to put up some ridiculous numbers as well. Brown should be a 1,000-yard receiver in 2024 and has the potential to be mentioned with the likes of Clemson greats DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, and Sammy Watkins. That's my breakdown of them. 2023, we got the Georgia Bulldogs. Last year, they went 13-1, and they were 8-0 overall in the SEC. They lost to Bama in the SEC championship, and Kirby Smart's their head coach. He's been there a few years as well. Won a couple championships. Really turned that program around. Georgia players to watch. We got Carson Beck, the quarterback. Dude threw for 3,941 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I'm shaking my head because he doesn't impress me. I hear about him all the time on ESPN and like all these talk shows about college football and this, that, and the other, but Carson Beck don't impress me. Their running back, Trevor Etienne, the younger brother of the Jacksonville Jaguar, Etienne. Trevor transferred from Florida. He ran for 753 yards at Florida and 8 touchdowns, and he also had 21 receptions, 172 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then Dominic Lovett, wide receiver, had 54 receptions, 613 yards, and 4 touchdowns last year. The Bulldogs held their opponents to 15.6 points per game, and offensively, the Bulldogs averaged 40.1 points per game. Georgia returns 9 offensive starters as well as 6 defensive. It's going to be a long year for Georgia opponents. Had Georgia not been beaten in the SEC championship, they'd enter the 24 season as 3-time defending national champions. I myself personally would rather play that Georgia team than the one we're going to get. In 24, you're going to see a pissed off Georgia team out for vengeance. Anyone who stands in their path will be taken out. Anyone who opposes them will be humbled. May God have mercy on anyone who stands across the field from the Bulldogs in 24. I said all that to say this. There are some teams who I think can give Georgia a run for their money, who can line up across from Georgia and play 4 quarters of football. But there's not many of them. But you can quote me on this. I think Alabama, I think Missouri, and I think Ohio State and Texas. Those 4 teams right there. I haven't seen Georgia's schedule yet, so I don't know who all they play. But those teams I just mentioned all will be in the college football playoff, allegedly, and Georgia could play them. And I think those are the only teams who could give Georgia a run for their money. Maybe, just maybe, Oregon could, but that's a maybe. Dan Lanning, he's a great coach. That's the only reason why I say that. Georgia will be a good test for Clemson, and Clemson will take this one on the chin, but will be better for it. I think Clemson, obviously, they'll lose this game. I wish they'd win the game. Like, I'm not counting them out. I'm just saying, if I'm putting money on it, I'm putting my money on the Georgia Bulldogs. I'd like to see Clemson win it. That'd be impressive. But I think they'll get whacked, but they'll be better for it. I think the rest of the season they'll be tougher, and they'll beat a lot of teams that they lost to last year. They lost to Miami last year. If they play them again, they'll beat them. But my prediction for this game, I had the Georgia Bulldogs winning 42-13. And that's all I got to say about that.